I've been a financial coach since 2016, and since then, I've seen a huge increase in the number of financial coaches offering services. This is a great thing. It means more conversations around financial literacy are showing people that there is outside help for your money, your budget, and your overall financial situation. Financial advisors help you keep and grow your wealth, but financial coaches help you lay the foundation to start building wealth. That's why I'm so excited to talk with another financial coach today, Nicole Stanley from Arise Financial Coaching. Nicole and I are going to discuss the rise of financial coaching, what benefits come from this type of coaching, and so much more. Hey there, I'm Raya Reeves, and over a decade ago, I turned my life around through budgeting. I went from being an overspender deep in credit card debt to being the founder and full-time money coach of City Girl Savings. Now, I help women work towards their dream life and tap into their financial power one budget at a time. I fully believe you can live a life you love with a budget, and I'm living proof. The weekly City Girl Savings podcast focuses on the intersection of money and the City Girl lifestyle. Join me every week along with some special guests as I share my experiences, advice, and guidance on navigating life and money as an experience-loving millennial. Nicole became a financial coach in 2020 after turning her own financial situation around. She went from $30,000 in debt to a $250,000 net worth in just 6 years. She started Arise Financial Coaching to help others do the things they want with their money. Nicole is the creator of the Financial Goal Accelerator program and the Money Momentum Method, which we will talk about later in this episode. Hi, Nicole. Thanks so much for coming on the show today. I'm sure I barely scratched the surface of your money background. Can you talk about what your finances were like before Arise Financial?
Yeah, so I love that introduction, and I'm so happy to be here because I think we're just going to be able to geek out about all things financial coaching and our clients and giving people the real details about what happens in our sessions. And yeah, so my financial journey started in 2015. So around when you started your business was when I started to really encounter financial stress in my life. So in 2015, I was about to be married. I was engaged that year. And I would say that all the stress of my childhood, I was not really noticing as an adult until things were getting real and I was about to get married. So my dad was a software engineer in the early 2000s. So he was making really good money, but it seemed like behind closed doors in our household, my parents were always fighting about money. So I remember having this weird complex with thinking like, well, it can't just be about what you make, or else why would we be so stressed? So when I was getting married, I was doing the budget for our wedding over and over again because my husband and I were low earners. I just graduated college. He was working in youth services. So it wasn't like we were rolling in the Benjamins. And I actually had one of my first panic attacks while doing our wedding budget. And really, this was a relationship that had almost no stress until finances came to be a part of the picture. So I remember looking at him from across the kitchen table and saying, like, if we can't afford this wedding where like our friends are making the cake and our friends are bartending, how the heck are we going to afford a life? And that was a real wake up call for me where I had realized like, wow, financial stress was actually taking over almost every aspect of my adult life. I cried on the way to my wedding because of a financial inconvenience, like something that was supposed to be really, really happy turned into something really stressful. And so that was when I decided, and my husband, or soon to be husband, we decided we were going to get some help with our finances. So we actually enrolled in the only course we knew at the time. I hadn't even heard of financial coaching at this time, but we enrolled in just like a basic financial literacy course. And that was the first time I had ever really heard the concept of how if you make a plan for your money, it doesn't necessarily matter how much you make, you can still do incredible things. And that was a really big, empowering moment for my life. And I kind of just ran with it. So I became the girl who was obsessed with budgeting. That's how I ended up making my budgeting method because I just really wanted to find something that was going to work for me. And so when we budgeted, when we got serious about paying off our debt, that's when things really started to change. So we paid off our student loans. We had a car loan at the time. And then after that, we started doing all the things. So we bought a live and flip. We started investing in our early 20s. And so if you fast forward to 2021, we had gotten to our first six figures invested by the age of 27. And that was a really big change in my life because I knew that even if I never invested another dollar, because I had prioritized my finances so early on in life, I would still be able to retire comfortably as a multimillionaire. And that was a really powerful thing for me as someone who had seen my parents struggle with looking at their future and wondering what their retirement journey would be. And so naturally, I just started helping friends and family because financial coaching wasn't a concept I even knew about. And it wasn't until a few years later that I launched my company in 2020 to start helping people professionally because I knew that, wow, this is life changing to be able to walk with someone, to be able to help them and strategize with them knee to knee. And that's essentially my money story and how it came to be that I would want to get in people's budgets.
Oh my gosh, you're a girl after my own heart because I myself love budgeting. So I resonate with that so much. And kudos to you for having the courage to search for that financial course. I feel like oftentimes there is that stopping point for people because they don't know or they don't think it's out there. So they don't really take it a step further to do the research they need to get the help they need. And you did. And look what it did for you.
Yeah, it's true. I think there is a concept. I don't know if you see this with your clients, but often people really feel like their situation with money is fixed. Like they're either someone who's good with money or they're someone who's bad with money. They're a spender, they're a saver. And I think one of the most beautiful things about financial coaching is it really relies on this concept that your financial skills are actually something you can improve. Like
Yes.
you are not set to be the way that you are with money today forever if you don't want to be. It's typically that mindset that makes us feel like we're fixed, that keeps it fixed. When financial skills are practicable, they're learnable. I mean, there's something that can improve over time.
Yes, I could not agree more. I feel like that is what prompted me to start City Girl Savings. I was actually terrible with money, and I went to school for finance. So I have my degree in finance, but while I was in school, I was living in LA. I was spending my money. I was going out. I was shopping. I was accumulating debt. I was doing all the wrong things. And even though I was going to school and learning what not to do, it taught me that there's so much more to money than just knowing what to do or just being told, do this, this, and this. Our emotions, our upbringing, our insecurities, all of that play a role. And to your point, if we can look at those things, we can change our own narrative. And it took some pretty harsh rock bottoms for me to take a look in the mirror, but sometimes we need that. And that's the catapult of change and growth and living the life we want.
Yeah, I could not agree more. So I'm curious for you, what was it that made you kind of make that shift between budgeting yourself and wanting to help other people?
Oh, great question. So I started doing like my own budgets while I was in California. So when I graduated from college, I got my first job out of college. And that's kind of where I was at this point where my bad money behaviors were catching up to me. I walked up to my apartment door and saw pay in 3 days or get out notice because I was late with my rent. And I didn't
Oh,
want to move back to Austin, as you and I were talking about before we pressed record. I never saw myself back in Austin. So the fact that I was days away from being booted back home, I had no choice but to turn it around. And so I just started doing budgets for myself at work, but my coworkers would be like, "What's that? Why are you always typing numbers in? Like, what are you doing here?" And I was like, "I'm just budgeting out my paycheck." And they're like, "Well, can you help me with this?" And I was like, "Yeah." And eventually it got to this point where I was like, maybe I can help people with this. But I didn't take it further at that point, Nicole. I was young and, I was still in LA and still kind of figuring my own stuff out. But I had kind of gotten on a roll with managing my money and budgeting. And then my dad passed away. So
mm,
everything that I thought I wanted and knew kind of just got thrown out the window. And I moved back home to Austin. And when I went back home, my expenses decreased drastically because I moved back home. And so all of the budgeting and money management skills I was working on, I got to expedite everything. And at that point, it clicked like, okay, I still like to go out to eat. I still like my iced coffees, but I'm also saving and investing and like making my money work for me. If I can do it, other women can too. And that's how City Girl Savings came to be.
I love that story.
Thank you. I don't usually get asked questions on my podcast. So that was a good one. I appreciate that. Before becoming a financial coach, I know you took this course and that totally turned the situation around for you. Do you remember what that course was and what were some of like the biggest things you learned about yourself and money during that time? Because clearly it had a huge impact on how you moved forward.
Yeah, so I took Financial Peace University, which is a Dave Ramsey course. It's a very popular course. And I both recommend and also don't recommend it. Part of my story is how, after taking Financial Peace University, I actually kind of turned some of that stress about money that was more nebulous into almost like this moralized stress. So I really equated that spending equaled bad and
Mm,
saving equaled good. And I think that that's part of what the Dave Ramsey culture can do for a lot of people. I know for a lot of my clients who have gone through Dave Ramsey, like they can sometimes express the same thing. And I think that's why financial coaching is such a great industry, because 20 years ago, all you had is thinkers like Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, or kind of just a couple of these really big gurus, if you say, right? Like, where if it's not their particular way, then it's no way at all. And financial coaches bring a lot of nuance into your situation, helping you figure out the right choices for you with your values. And so I actually developed a really negative, I call it like a frugality fanaticism that I kind of had,
mm,
where I couldn't spend money without triple guessing myself. And even when I was debt free, I remember I booked a trip to take my family to Paris. We had started investing. We had done all the things that the financial guru, quote unquote, said we should do. But I still had this deeply unhealthy and negative relationship with my money. And
mm.
so I think sometimes that the way we pay off debt can also control how we feel even when we're debt free, which is, I think, a new concept for people, because we can actually pay off debt and not hate ourselves and over restrict ourselves in the process. But it's not typically what you hear when it comes to personal finance experts.
I could not agree more. And I had a feeling that was the course you were going to say. My whole mission behind City Girl Savings is like enjoying your life on a budget. I think oftentimes people hear the word budget and they think, well, I can't spend my money. I can't do anything. I just have to put my head down and save or pay off debt and that's it. And that's not it. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. Sure, there's going to be sacrifices and discipline because that's where growth comes, but it doesn't have to be you being miserable the whole way through. So I'm curious, when you took Financial Peace University and when you were implementing everything that you learned, did you give yourself any room to enjoy life with? Or was it once you kind of got to this place where you're getting ready to book the trip that you realized I need to do more of that for myself?
That's a really good question. I think it was gradual. I know that when we started our debt free journey, I'm a bit of an extremist. I get passionate about things. So, like I said, I was obsessed with budgeting, and the good fruit of that was coming up with my money momentum system. But the bad fruit of that was I was really obsessed with budgeting. And so, for me, when I saw a real change is when I started helping people. Before I started my company, I started, just like I said, helping friends and family. And I noticed that there was a really big difference between the attitude that I had with myself about saving money and the attitude that seemed to really work for other people. And I found myself noticing that I could never really talk to a client the way I was talking to myself. Does that make
Mm,
sense? Like, I
yeah.
could not, I was so strict and so obsessed with being frugal that I realized, like, I would never treat anyone else this way.
Yeah.
Why am I being this way to myself? And it was kind of realizing I needed to get other personal finance thinkers in my head. I kind of, like I said, I was like a Ramsey girl through and through. So I can hear him yelling, you better run out of debt. Like, I really internalized that guilt. And when I started helping my clients this way, I noticed, like, well, they weren't clients at the time, but people this way, I started to say, wow, what if I practice that for myself? And what I noticed was there was a lot more relaxation, a lot more gratitude with spending instead of just looking for the cheapest thing always and wondering how you can save the most. And I think too that as my kids, they're getting older now, I can see what a joy it is to be able to also spend on experiences that I would have previously told myself, like, oh, those are not worthless, but like frivolous. You don't need that. And
Mm.
not everything in life is about a need. And so having balance in your relationship with money, I think is a huge game changer for longevity, because really what a lot of people experience is over restricting themselves and then kind of binge spending as a
Mhm.
result. I have this cycle that I'll often talk to my clients about, and it's the restriction shame spiral, where you first are avoiding your money because you're stressed about it. And so you don't look at your bank account, you don't look at your spending, your credit cards, you're just stressed. And so then, though, you start to have a moment where something clicks and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to check in. Things are out of control. My credit card's bigger than I expect. So you check in, you have like a crisis moment, and then you make a restriction plan. So because you're coming in this high level of stress, you make a restriction plan and you say, I'm going to cut out eating out. I'm not going to go on vacation. I'm not buying clothes. I don't need anything at all. And then that restriction plan is usually very overwhelming, and it just leads you to burnout. And that burnout makes you typically have a binge cycle where you say, you know what, I don't care. You take yourself out to sushi, you book a last minute trip, and you do some kind of like regressive spending that leads you to this place of avoidance again.
Mm.
And so this cycle goes round and round until you're able to find a plan that really works for you. And I think that that's really the magic of financial progress, is the balance, because the over restriction and the avoidance typically leads you to two places of burnout.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more. And I think it goes back to people like us kind of changing that money narrative, like people associating budgeting with, I can't enjoy myself, I can't live my life. That's not true, right? You can create an effective spending plan that allows you to enjoy your life in moderation, but still reach the goals that you have for yourself. And as you make more money, it just gets easier and easier. But I think you explained it perfectly. And also, too, I would say an important part of the cycle is wanting to break it, right? Because
Mm.
there is a want when you create your restrictive plan that's too restrictive, but then you kind of go back to your old ways. And so there really has to be something inside a person that says, like, I can't keep doing this. It's not working. And I actually don't want this. I don't enjoy it. Even when I'm overspending, I don't enjoy that. In the moment, it feels good, but it's not for me. I think that is a crucial point that people need to get to as well before they take on this path of budgeting effectively and truly seeing change in their situation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think there always has to be a catalyst for change, because as much as I wish that there was a way to fall into being good with money, it's typically not something that we can just like kind of stumble into. It's a
Right.
really intentional action. And if you're somebody who's used to stress with money, overspending, feeling overwhelmed by your money, it's going to take a big change. And it's going to first start with your decision that you want to make a big change. Because I think that sometimes many of us can kind of have like wishful thinking that it's like, oh, but when I get that promotion, things will
Yes.
just be better. And once my kids get out of daycare, or once I get into a different living, whatever it might be, we typically like to place the carrot just a couple paces in front of us, when really there is no perfect time,
No.
but the perfect time is the time you make it. And so
Yes.
I absolutely agree that there has to be that desire to get out of it and a desire to make a change, because it's not going to be something that just kind of falls in our lap. Although I wish it would.
Yeah, same here. I mean, that would make everybody's lives easier, but it doesn't quite work like that. In my experience, it actually can take a lot for a person to get to that point where they're ready to make that change, but also when they're ready to pay money to get help with that change, right? To pay money to get help with their money. And I think it's because society still has work to do to ensure that people understand that it's okay to need and ask for help with your money. Is that something that you experience as well? And what do you think about that in general?
Yeah, I could not agree more that our society has a very weird thing about paying for help with money specifically. And Money's been something that's typically private, something that people keep behind closed doors. And I think that what's happening now that's actually exciting is that people are realizing that that mentality of saying, well, I can do it all on my own is actually hurting them more financially than it is helping them. Like the idea that we never need help with something actually doesn't benefit us because I know that financial coaches can be expensive, but if you're somebody who's feeling really stuck with their money, if you've tried budgeting on your own before and you still feel like you're not able to see the progress you want, right? Like you've tried to read all the things you can, the books, you've done the Googling, right? There is no shortage of financial information out there. That's what I always tell people. Like anything and everything you could ever want is freely available online when it comes to personal finance. The only thing that isn't is your action, right?
Right.
Because the gap between knowledge and action can be an entire lifetime. And so, depending on your situation, right? Not everybody needs financial coaching, but if you're somebody who's not seeing progress, a gentle question that you can ask yourself is it actually costing me more to stay
Mhm.
where I'm at than it is to get help, right? Like when you think about a financial coach, a really good analogy is like a health coach. And
Mhm.
if you have somebody who can help you figure out the eating plan that's going to work for you and the exercise plan and hold you accountable and show up at the gym with you and cheer you on, right? Like all the things that are typically hard for you to do on your own. It's not that you're like, oh man, I just don't know what to do. We all know how health kind of works,
Yeah.
right? But the difference is the person who hires a fitness coach or a health coach is somebody who's like really committed to their result and they're willing to put some skin in the game to make sure
Yes.
it happens. And I think that's actually the most powerful part of hiring a financial coach is not just the fact that they're going to come in with ideas and strategies that you've probably never thought of before, but it's the fact that you're making a commitment that you are going to see your finances improve and you're going to make sure it happens. And those are typically the clients that I get to work with is the clients who are committed to seeing results. They're committed to seeing their improvement. They're extremely coachable. And I mean, it's kind of a little bit of the type of person who's willing to hire a financial coach. And then when you look at that type of person's results, usually you're going to see, wow, right? Boy, did this pay off for them
Yeah.
because look at how much debt they were able to pay off. Look at how much they were able to save. Look at how much they were able to either increase their income. It's incredible what happens in 3 months to a few years of financial focus.
Yes.
And I think that that's often what's at stake for people, but it has to be something that they really want and are committed to.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I think a part of that commitment is knowing that you're not necessarily going to get like a tangible result or a tangible return, right? You're not going to be able to like physically hold something, or I'm giving my money to this person and they're giving me a nice bag in return, right? It's you're investing in someone who has the knowledge, the experience, the wherewithal to hold you accountable to what you need to do to see the improvement in your situation. And I think if a person can understand that the results that come from that type of help are just infinite, that's where the potential is. And sometimes I think maybe it's people aren't quite ready or they're still trying to figure out if they're ready for it. But you kind of have to have that vision of anything is possible if I'm doing what I need to do to see what I want to see with my situation. And I think that's another somewhat hurdle for financial coaches is because we can't just say, tomorrow your bank account is going to be X, or in 3 months your credit score is going to go up by 100 points. It doesn't quite work like that. However, if you do the steps that you need to do and take the actions that you need to take to improve your situation, these things will come over time and so much more.
And I think that the other thing that people are investing in is their financial skills. Like we said
Mhm.
earlier, like financial skills are something that can be improved and there's something that you have for a lifetime. So, really, my goal when I'm helping a client is not just about the tangible thing that's happening right then and there, which is typically it's great, right? Like I love seeing the increase in savings. I love seeing all of that in the moment. But as a coach, I'm actually much more concerned with are they mastering the financial skills necessary to make them financially confident and successful for the rest of their life?
Right.
Because if I get them results just while they're working with me, I don't believe I've done my job right. right?
Right. Yeah.
I am here to help them become the best financial version of themselves. And that is, in my opinion, the best thing I can do as a
Yeah.
financial coach.
Absolutely, because these are lifelong skills. Like you said, it's not just a short term and you're head down and focused, but only for a short amount of time. No, like you want to actually make this a part of your lifestyle so that as you make more money and as your situation changes, you know what to do, you know how to handle all of that. So, totally agree with that, Nicole. Are you loving this episode so far? Well, the money and life level up conversations never end in the City Girl Savings community. Visit citygirlsavings.com for instant access to resources that help you budget, level up your money mindset, and so much more. And make sure you stay up to date with CGS by following us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at City Girl Savings. So, toxic frugality and shame-based money advice are two things that your company does not agree with. Can you share how both of these things can have negative impacts over the long haul for a person?
Yeah. So, one of the things I see when clients come to me and that I've experienced in my own life is that when we want to improve our finances, specifically as women too, we kind of just immediately get in this cut mode, right? Like, I don't know how many articles you've read kind of about how to save money at the grocery store and how to clip coupons and all of this kind of like frugal type of stuff, right?
Behaviors,
And
yeah.
yeah, I think as women, we kind of equate if I'm a frugal woman, I'm a good woman with money. And I believe that often it can create this really unhappy relationship with money where we become unhappy when we spend money. We're always trying to look for the cheapest option. We are kind of resentful when it comes to expenses. Like I know as inflation has increased, we can be really unhappy. And I think that even if you make a ton of money, if you have that relationship with money, that you're somebody who doesn't like to spend and can't find ways to joyfully spend, ultimately you're putting yourself in a really tough situation where I think it's going to be hard to enjoy a lot of your life. That's
Yeah.
what I found for myself because, I kind of wasn't able to relax if things weren't as cheap as they possibly could be.
Mm,
And I think that a lot of times people have this perception that if you're good with money, you turn into this person because they've seen people like that. Like we all can think of our cheap uncle or cheap aunt who is really stingy, kind of like Ebenezer Scrooge. Like if I'm going to be wealthy, that's like who I'm going to be is this really unhappy person. And so I'm against toxic frugality because I know it doesn't work in the long term, but I also believe that it distracts a lot of women from the true wealth building properties that they can be focusing on. So for me, I feel like my life really changed after I used my budgeting to be able to start investing, right? Like to be able to now have a rental property, to be able to invest in the stock market, invest heavily in my retirement. That's really powerful stuff. But
yeah.
that's not the stuff that women are taught. Typically, we're just taught about how to save a few bucks at the grocery store. And I'm really on a mission to help women understand not just how to start investing from their cash flow, but really see how they can learn how to do it with lower fees, not feel so taken advantage of by the financial industry. Like there's so much education that's out there that many women are intimidated by. And so I really think that if we want to have the city girl lifestyle, right? Part of that equation is also learning how to invest our money and making
Yeah.
our money work for us. And so I think that that's why I focus a lot more on how can we make your spending plan or your budget plan sustainable so it can't be overly restrictive because you will give up. But then also, how can we make your money work for you so that you can really use everything that's available in the financial space for your benefit? And I think that that's a really empowering concept for women. It's not just how do I budget every single month, but investing is how I make my money actually give me the ability to do what I want in life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think there's such a need out there because this information was gate kept for so long, right? I mean, they still don't teach this in school. You have to proactively go seek out that information. Even in high school, financial literacy is not something that's required, but home economics is. It's really crazy how our society is not setting individuals up for success. It's almost like the wealth is staying with the wealthy and they know what it takes to be wealthy and maintain that wealth and pass down that wealth. And that information isn't as freely shared as it should be, though people like you in the financial coaching industry, like that is changing, but
Yes.
there's still a ways to go, I think.
I could not agree more. And I think that's another kind of thing about financial coaching that people don't talk about enough, which is for the longest time, it's just been you can hire a financial planner or an advisor, which is somebody who's going to help you invest your money. But for the longest time, that industry has been ruled by assets under management and selling you the idea that it's too complicated, so you need to hire them.
Right.
Right? That's the big
Mhm.
elephant in the room is they have a license and so therefore they can do it and you cannot. And as long as we do that, we end up overpaying in fees. We spend more money than we have to because we don't know the information. And then on the other side is tax professionals. Those were kind of the two professionals you could reach out to with your personal finances. But your advisor was never going to sit down with you and say, okay, hey, you've got this really high credit card debt balance. How am I going to help you month to month with the bills you have now, the spending you have now, the
Mhm.
goals you have now to actually move your debt down, right? The advisor was just there to say, yeah, if you don't have 250 that I can manage, then I kind of won't waste my time with you because they would only get paid off a percentage of the money that you have invested. And so
Right.
really financial coaching is revolutionary in the
Yes.
financial industry because we're all in some way hourly professionals, right? We do not take a percentage of our clients' wealth. We are not there to sell a certain investment or a certain financial product that's really shitty, right? Like we are just there for our clients. And that is the type of help that most people need. And so I know part of our question that we were talking about today is why the rise of financial coaching. And I think it's because the modern American is becoming more educated and they want hourly financial professionals who are there to help them with no other interest on the back end other than, hey, I'm here to give you the best advice possible to help you make the best decision for you. And I don't have stake in the game in wanting to get a percentage of it later. That is ultimately what I think helps a lot of people make really great decisions with their money because the type of financial professionals that existed before was just about how can I manage your investments for you? And I really don't care about anything else.
I couldn't agree more. And I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, well, I talked with the financial advisor and they said they couldn't work with me because I had all this debt, or they said, come back to me once my debt is paid off. And it just solidifies this gap, if you will, in really getting people set up to have wealth that needs to be managed, right? There is a whole slew of individuals who are not necessarily ready to work with a financial advisor if they ever want to take that road, but people do need help laying the foundation for their financial situation so that they can be in a place to have wealth, build wealth, maintain wealth, and grow their wealth, right? It's almost like there was a gap. There still
There
is a
is a
gap.
gap.
There is a gap. It's slowly closing with people like you and I, but for a long time, those people just kind of were like, well, I guess that I just have to accept what is because these people aren't going to help me make my money where it needs to be to work with them. And so that's a shameful thing to realize about our country, but people like us are changing that. And that's really hopeful.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And it's funny because our culture has a way that we're okay with paying for financial professionals and a way that they feel uncomfortable. And I think that's what can make people uncomfortable about coaching is we're not used to actually paying up front for something.
Right.
But what's great is that our job as financial coaches is to help people understand the true costs,
Yes.
right? Like how to calculate real fees, right? How to make sure that they're not overpaying on healthcare and overpaying on childcare and going with them line by line in a way that other financial professionals aren't going to do. And I think it's just stellar.
Yeah, I totally agree. And piggybacking off that, I know that you came up with the money momentum method. I would love if you could break that down and just share with all of us, like what exactly that is.
Yeah. So the money momentum method was kind of something I created out of desperation. I am a late diagnosed ADHD, like major ADHD. I found out this year, really, that I've
Wow.
had severe ADHD my whole life. I didn't know how it would present in a girl, but basically, it was something I didn't know I had. I just knew my brain was a little different. I forgot things. I struggled with follow through. And a lot of the like budgeting tips that I found online did not work for me. And what's great about the money momentum method is that it works for a lot of people who don't have ADHD, because I always tell people that the mainstream way of budgeting is actually really difficult. Like when you look at these budgeting sheets online that are like, okay, just add up all your income and then plan out like a fortune teller how you're going to spend your money throughout the month, and then spend it that exact same way every single month, and then track every expense, and you're going to be golden, right? Like that's a nightmare for people. Like most people do not have the follow through, they don't have the time. Nobody cares that much. And even if you do, good God, like it's a lot of energy. So that's what I had found in my life, was that I was really overwhelmed with like reconciling my budget and looking for the $6 difference, and like where was this charge of XYZ, like. And I think that that can really be demoralizing for people who start their financial journey, is that it's not really up to date, it's not modern. And so I always like to say the modern budgeting method is broken. And so what I created is a proactive automated way of managing your money. So I think about money in a really broad sense, that instead of having someone look at their month to month expenses, we actually look annually. And there's a real powerful reason why, because I want to help people figure out the average amount of money that they're able to save every single month without even noticing it. So that's what I call momentum money. That's
Mm.
the money on top of your lifestyle, on top of your bills, that is extra and used towards your goals. So what I do with my clients in our first session is take a look at everything that they've got going on, call it the financial audit, but then I help them actually break down their spending into 3 to 4 categories. And those categories will tell us how we'll automate their budget plan moving forward. And so instead of people spending and then trying to look back and like reconcile it, I have an account system where we automate certain categories, and those categories pre-fund, and then you're able to spend from them. So instead of you wondering like, am I on track? Do I need to reconcile my budget? You just open your phone and look at that account, and you know how much money you have. And the goal is that it's supposed to be comfortable, but also hold you accountable. And then we're able to send that extra money towards whatever your goal is at the time. So I know a lot of people are used to thinking about their savings as something they're always doing, where I kind of flip that on its head, where we figure out exactly how much money you need in your emergency fund, and we hit that goal within the first couple months. After that, we pre-fund your lifestyle spending. After that, we pay off your high interest credit card debt. After that, we use it to increase your lifestyle spending and start investing. But these are things that can be automated, and that's kind of where the money momentum method comes in, is helping people categorize based on their spending and how they already spend, and then pre-funding accounts, so that instead of them having to look back and look at a spreadsheet, their system works for them even when they're not motivated. And I think that's what's so revolutionary for people, is that something that took a lot of manual, intense, you know how it is, girl.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know how it is. Like it is so overwhelming. And really that was just like my ADHD brain knowing, hey, you want this to work for you long term. It's not going to work if you're manually doing X and manually doing Y and manually doing, so I spent years fine tuning this system so that if a girl with severe ADHD can do it, a lot of people without ADHD also love it as well.
Wow. I think that is incredible because there are certain personality types that thrive on the manual nature of budgeting. I'm one of those. I'm a Virgo. I'm very type A. So I love everything kind of just exactly where it
Just
needs to
so.
be. Yeah, it fills my soul. But not everybody is like that. And up until recently, with what you have here with the money momentum method, like there wasn't really an option for people who don't function like that or who don't thrive on that type of budgeting process. So I love that you have catered to a whole market of individuals who really want to get better with budgeting, but up until this point, they couldn't just because of the way the process worked. So that's incredible.
Yeah. And I always tell people too, like what I love about type A personalities, because I have a lot of clients like that, is I'm like, I love your type A person. Like, I love that you want it to be perfect. Here's what I want though, is I want that energy not to be in tracking your utility bill. I want that energy to be on how do I get more money towards investing? How do I get my vacations funded more? How do I start a business? Like, I find that there's actually so much amazing stuff that you can put that energy you have towards money that isn't some of those manual tasks that just don't really matter that much. And
Right.
so, if we can streamline kind of the admin work, then I think it frees up that mental energy towards stuff that's even more life changing for you.
Yeah, the exciting stuff, the stuff that makes budgeting and everything worth it. Like
Yeah.
actually investing in something like this, it makes it worth it when you can work towards that life you really want to live.
Yeah.
So let's talk about spending for a second. A lot of people think that sticking to a budget means they can't spend money or have fun. And with a proper budget, fun should be factored in. And sort of like what you were explaining, like almost like pre funding your fun spending or your spending in general. What are your thoughts on values based spending and how can people work to incorporate more of that into their budgets, whether it's through your system, Nicole, or just in general, people who kind of struggle with that toxic frugality?
Yeah, I think that value based spending is the way that most people are going to find alignment. I think that when most people think about their financial life, they don't realize how kind of automatic things are. Like, what I find is people kind of spend a certain way because that's how their parents spend, or that's how their friends spend, or that's just what they're used to. Like, kind of the concept that a lot of the things in our life and our financial life are changeable and malleable is a very, I think, new idea for people. And so, the idea that you could start to move money towards something you care about more, I think can actually make a lot of people mad because they're used to the story of like, well, I don't have enough money for that. I can't afford that.
Mm,
Right. And so I think even the idea of kind of chatting with people of like, hey, we want you to spend money on the things that you value is an unknown concept for people. It's first showing them, hey, these things in your life that feel really fixed, you can choose whether you want to spend more on them or you want to spend less on them. Like that is revolutionary
yeah.
to some people's lives. Like I think there's a lot of people listening right now who might be like, well, yeah, sure, I value travel, but I don't know how to find money to travel. That's the financial skill, right? Of learning how to move your funds away from some of the stuff that maybe you don't care about as much as other people to start to funnel it towards the stuff that you care about. And I think that the way people can start doing that is really to start asking themselves, in what ways do I spend on autopilot? And is the money that I'm spending, is it giving me back what I'm giving it? Do I feel that like I'm happy to spend this money or do I give it begrudgingly to
Mm,
something? Like that's often like a really good tester of if it's something people value is how do they feel when they're spending? Because if you can start to identify like, yeah, I spend all this money on beauty products because that's what my friends do, but I don't care. I don't care if I have this ultra amazing skincare product or if I have this hair stuff. I've just always gone to the same salon hairdresser forever because my mom took me there and she charges me 400 bucks every time I go, right? Like there's a lot of ways that you can kind of ask yourself, how do I spend on autopilot? What are the things that I love spending on? How can I find money to put towards the things that I care about more and take away from some of the stuff that I'm begrudgingly spending on? And I think that can be a hard thing for many people, but even starting to find like $50 that you can start to bring towards the stuff that you care about, it makes the whole kind of cycle of making and spending money a lot more fulfilling, I think.
yes.
But I know it's actually like a really tough subject for people
Yeah.
because if we can do that, then that means that they don't know how yet if they're not doing that right now. And so I want to encourage someone if they're listening that, hey, even if you haven't found the way to reallocate some of that money, it's still possible. It might be
Yes.
slow and steady. You might need somebody like us to help you with it, but it is possible to move money towards the things that you care about more. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that you say, pay attention to like how you feel when you're spending money. And that requires intention. And I think to your point about being on autopilot, it can be so easy to just go through the day to day motions and pay your bills and just not really pay attention to like how you feel when you're spending money or how you feel when money goes out or money comes in. But being intentional, being aware, recognizing those things, whether it's a good or a bad feeling, is really important because that's going to tell you what your next steps are. Like if you don't like spending money, getting your hair done, spending $400, stop it. But you have to be aware, you have to recognize that that is something you feel. If you're just on autopilot, it's just going to continue until you have that awareness.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's hard to give blanket advice, which is
Yeah.
often what people find on the internet is like,
Hmm.
you should be spending on X and you shouldn't be spending on Y. And what percentage needs to go here? And it's like, gosh, there isn't a cookie cutter way that works for everyone, but there is a
Right.
perfect way for you, right? It's about figuring out your best path towards financial freedom. And that is going to be personal.
Definitely. And I think just adding to that, someone can go out there and find advice for the masses, but someone can also go out there and find someone who can help personalize their money experience to them and everything in between, right? There's group coaching, there's just courses that you can take online, there's working one on one with a coach. Like, think about your personality and the type of help that would best serve you, and then seek those options as opposed to just going to the first thing you find.
Yeah.
Speaking of help, you offer a group coaching program called Financial Goal Accelerator. Can you talk about this program and all that it entails?
Yeah. So the Financial Goal Accelerator is one of our main programs outside of our one on one. So, one on one is how we usually help people, but we've created the Financial Goal Accelerator as a way for our coaching services to be accessed by way more people. So, I took the money momentum method and turned it into a hybrid online course and coaching. So, what someone's able to do over 12 months is they're able to do everything that I would do with a one on one client, but at their own pace and ask questions along the way. So, I have another financial coach on my team full time, and we both help the clients inside of the Financial Goal Accelerator so that they're able to take, okay, here's the concept and here's how I can use it to automate my money, but also I have all these questions about my personal situation. And so it takes financial information and really still doesn't lose the coaching element. So we have both one-on-one meetings with people. We have group meetings with the students inside of Financial Goal Accelerator. And what people love about it is that they're able to go at their own pace. So
Mm,
a lot of people are just like racehorses and they can get through the first content really fast. Other people have to slow down and really focus on improving their cash flow or improving their clarity. We have 12 steps in the program that help somebody go from feeling financially stressed to feeling financially successful and confident. And that's really our goal in all of our financial coaching programs is how can we give you the financial skills you need to be successful? And then how do we help you put them into practice and action in your life?
wonderful. And now, how does that differ from the one on one? Is the one on one a shorter time frame? Like, is it 3 months, or how does that differ?
Yeah. So one on one coaching, we have kind of two ways that people will work with us. We offer intensive sessions, which is where we look over your finances. We help you create a customized action plan. We help you identify your specific struggles. And then we kind of say, okay, you got this. About 50% of people make a lot of progress with that intensive session. And then we have ongoing coaching programs that we have some clients that have worked with us as low as 90 days, and others have been with us for years and years because their financial goals, right? It's funny when you start something, you're like, well, my main goal is to pay off debt, but then you do that faster than you
Right.
thought. And then it's like, well, now, right? And our relationship with money really is lifelong, but people are able to decide for themselves the support that they need.
Wonderful. And where can listeners learn more? Where can they connect with you? What's the process for that?
So you can connect with us on Instagram, TikTok, all the major like social media platforms. We give a lot of free resources on Instagram. And we also host free financial classes every single month. So we host an investing class, We host some really low cost group events as well that we're starting to launch soon where you can implement stuff. It's actually stuff I'm really excited about, but I probably shouldn't share more. We are always on the path of like, how can we help more people? How can we help them implement an easier way to budget? But how can we help them overcome the biggest obstacles that they are just running into again and again? Like, we want to be the people who can help you strategize for yourself. So if you're someone who feels stuck, you can find us on Facebook, you can find us on Instagram, but you can also book a free call with us if you've ever wanted to chat through whether financial coaching is really for you.
Wonderful. I will definitely link to all of those channels and platforms in the show notes. Nicole, any final words of wisdom for someone who is on the fence about working with a financial coach?
So if you're listening to this and you're on the fence, I would imagine that it's probably because of a few things. The first is that you're really wondering if something can actually change in your life. I think that that's one of the biggest obstacles for people, especially the type of people that you and I work with that have tried it all. Like, I think it's really hard to believe that something else could possibly help you. I think that financial coaching is a wonderful resource for people who have tried it on their own and given it their best shot and haven't seen the results that they want. I think the first thing that you might be feeling is if it's possible. And I want to encourage you that no matter where you are financially, I promise any financial problems that you have are fixable. I promise. Everything with your finances is fixable. Your finances can look completely different in the next few months, in the next few years. But if you don't believe they can be different, they never will be. So if we can give you anything in this conversation, I think my hope is that you can walk away with hope that things can change. Now, you can change those things on your own. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you're somebody who's really given it your go, given it your all, and you're not seeing those results, what do you have to lose? Because right now, you're going to keep getting the same results you have been. So why not consider getting help? Because at the end of the day, it's you who you're investing in. It's not me, even other financial coaches besides us. Do your research, look online, find someone who really fits with you. But I promise that if you're not getting the results you want financially, there's a reason, it's fixable, and definitely you can find help for that.
Incredibly inspiring. Thank you so much, Nicola, for sharing your wisdom with all of us. And I look forward to connecting with you myself in the future. Thank you so much for letting me be the money coach in your ear today. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the City Girl Savings Podcast and you feel empowered and motivated to take the next step in the journey to your dream life. Remember, if someone like me, a millennial who loves to travel, new experiences, and iced coffees can live a life they love on a budget, you can too.